Yes, geezers, Specie here. We are evaluating all of the Marvel Snap cards that have been revealed so far prior to release. We are using the website marvelsnap.io. Please go check them out. I am going to be telling you which of these cards are good, which of these cards suck. Obviously, I haven't played the game, but I've been talking to my Twitch chat about all these cards, watching all the gameplay, talking about what we think is good. So just to give you a general idea, the curve you're looking at is for a card which costs 1 energy, you're wanting to double it. And then have some kind of upside. So for a 1 cost card, you're looking for 2 stats plus an upside. For a 2 cost card, you're looking for 4 stats plus an upside. Now that upside might be a point, it might be some kind of ability. That's kind of the minimum threshold you're looking for. As soon as a card is not hitting that, you're not going to want to play it. In Marvel Snap, you have 12 cards in your deck, and there's like 130 cards or so. So realistically, if a card is below that curve, you're just not going to include it because there's cards that are better than it. So Ant-Man, I think is in the starter decks, is a 1-1. We're going to look at all the 1 cost cards first. It has an ongoing ability if you have 3 of the cards here, plus 3 power. So you can get 4 stats off Ant-Man for 1 mana. Obviously, it's not guaranteed though. Quite weak to Elektra, can punish this quite significantly. And if it gets punished, it's playing for 1 stat. So it has a ceiling of 4, but also a floor of 1. So bit of a risky card to include. High ceiling, low reward. High ceiling, low floor. What's the word? I think that's what I'm looking for. High ceiling, low floor. Cool. Deadpool is a 1-1. When this unit is destroyed, return it to your hand with double the power. This is the kind of card you're going to want to build your deck around, mate. Very hard to evaluate how good this card is, but I've got a feeling it's going to be popping off. Another question you have to ask if you're building a whole deck around this card is how on earth are you going to draw it consistently in round 1? Because you're going to want to play it on turn 1, and then you're going to want some kind of 2 mana card to destroy it, right? How consistently are you going to be able to do that is the big question for this card on how good it is. So far, there's not been any cards revealed which are really giving you much consistency. Obviously, there's 12 cards in your deck. You draw 4, so there's a, 33% chance you draw this in your opening hand. So in like 2/3 of games, you're not going to, and that could be a problem. Elektra is a 1-1. On reveal, destroy a random enemy 1-cost card at this location. So this card is trading up to every single 1-cost card in the game because it's killing them. Unless they have some kind of on-reveal effect, which might buff a card, or like Iceman, which like has an on-reveal effect, which buffs something else, right? It trades up to every other 1-drop card. However, the big downside of this card is that you cannot play it on turn 1. That's a really big downside of any 1-cost card. You want to just, if you have a 1-cost card in deck, be able to play it and not really think about it. But with Elektra, that's not going to be the case, and you could just end up wasting your first turn. So that's a big downside of her. But I mean, obviously, the fact she trades up isn't nice. But I do think it's a really big downside that you can't play a turn 1. Again, you've only got 12 cards, your 1-mana cards, you're probably going to want to play on turn 1. We have Hawkeye, who is a 1 stat for 1 energy. On reveal, if you play a card here next turn, plus 2 power. So 3 stats for 1, pretty solid. Obviously, it's giving your opponent a whole bunch of info though, which could be really bad. Also requiring you to just stack into the same location, which you might not want to do. Hawkeye's nice though, 3 stats for 1 energy, you can't really go wrong. And this is what I'm saying about double the mana plus an upside. He is playing for double the mana 2, and the upside is that he's just got an extra stat, right? A lot of the other things might be two stats, but then have some kind of like extra upside on the ability. He's just 3 stats. And that is the upside is like that 1 extra stat. Iceman is a 1-2, so 2 stats on Iceman. On reveal, give a random card in your opponent's hand plus 1 cost. It says maximum 6. I assume what this means is you cannot turn a 6-cost card into a 7-cost card, but you could turn a 5-cost into a 6. I'm assuming that's what maximum 6 means in this case. Obviously, it's a 6-turn game, so it would be really, really OP if you could turn your opponent's 6-cost card into a 7-cost, because then you just can't play it in a lot of situations. So Iceman, I think the card's amazing, to be honest. I think it's one of the better ones I've seen. It's always playing for value, really. Like the way it's not playing for the curve, plays for 2 stats, and then it gives a random card in your opponent's card plus 1 cost that they weren't ever going to play. But realistically, you're playing it on reveal. There's 3 cards in your opponent's hand at that point. Like, it's going to make things awkward for them, you would imagine. Like, imagine you play this, they've got a 2-mana card in hand, and you hit it with the Iceman. That is just insane. Because suddenly, if your opponent hasn't got another way of utilizing that mana, like, damn. Iceman seems really, really strong to me. Like, insanely strong. Nightcrawler is a 1-2. So it's, you know, the upside of this, because it's doubling the energy, is you can move this once. This could be used to put this card into a location where you can't play cards. It could also be used last minute to move Nightcrawler to just have that 2 extra points you need to take a location, a little bit of Bamboozle. Interesting card. Might be some movement synergies too. There's a Rock. This is like a card that you get clogged with. It's not a card you actually put in your deck. It has 0 stats. That is useless, true. Rocket Raccoon next, which is 2 stats for 1 energy. On reveal, if your opponent played a card here this turn plus 2 power. There's a whole bunch of cards like this from Guardians of the Galaxy at the different energy costs. They're all pretty terrible. Rocket Raccoon is probably the best of the bunch though, because if you low roll, it's just playing for 2 stats, slightly below curve because it's not going to have any upside. But if you high roll, it's playing for 4 stats, which is, you know, slightly above the curve. It's a 33% chance on turn 1. Obviously, there might be some intel you have. Realistically, it's a bit of a high roll if you play it turn 1. If you high roll, great. And obviously, you've got like the folding mechanic in this game as well. So maybe it's decent. I think this card's okay, but like it's not really going to be anything too competitive. It's maybe just like a card that you're interested in playing. It's just like a value card before collecting all these other options. Scarlet Witch is a 1/2. On reveal, replace this location with a random new one. This is a really exciting ability. Again, not really a card I don't think that you're going to be wanting to play too often on turn 1, which I think is a big downside for these 1-cost cards. I think it's a huge upside if you're happy to play it turn 1. Which Scarlet Witch probably isn't. In some situations, sure. I would imagine if you play Scarlet Witch on a location which isn't shown yet, it doesn't do anything. Don't know, maybe it just changes it to a different one that was going to be, but there's just high roll, like you're never really going to be interested in doing that. Obviously she's going to be great if you see a location that you really don't want, that you think your opponent's going to really do well off. You can try and high roll. I think the card's more fun than anything too serious, but maybe there's some synergies you could use with her. But like as a turn 1 play, I think the upside is just not really there for the curve, and on average she's probably playing for less value than you would like. Sunspot is a card I think lots of people are going to be including, particularly early game when you don't have like these perfectly built decks. Sunspot at the end of each turn gains +1 power for each unspent energy. There's also some synergies. There's a 6-cost card which has 20 stats, and it says you can play this card only if you don't play a card the turn before. Sunspot is going to be crucial for that card to see play, because your Sunspot is going to turn that 5 mana, or energy rather, that you don't play into points. If you can get a couple of Sunspots down on the board somehow as well, like if there's a way of duplicating cards in this game, that's going to be really a nice combo. I think the card's really good. I do think it will probably get worse the more the game is out though, because ultimately for every point this card gets is a point of energy that you have not spent, and again, 1 energy kind of equals 2 points, whereas this is turning 1 energy into 1 point. But ultimately, some games you are just not going to be able to play to your perfect mana curve, and therefore the card should get some value. Yondu up next, which is my favorite card because it's a mill card. If you guys know me from Gwent, I love the mill archetype in Gwent, which is removing every single card from your opponent's deck so they cannot draw any more cards. They try and draw cards, but they just have got nothing left. I imagine in a 12-card deck, it's gonna 12-card deck with only 6 rounds. It's going to be pretty difficult to mill, but again, all you need to do is like mill like 3 or 4 cards, and then they're going to have no draws left. Yondu is the only one I think revealed so far that has this ability though. It's 2 stats. And the upside is that you remove a card from the opponent's top of your opponent's deck. Some games this is going to play for less than 2 stats because you're going to get rid of a card that your opponent doesn't care about, and then suddenly they're, you know, able to. It's basically thinning the deck for them. But then other games, if you high roll, you could just win the game on the spot in some weird situations of killing your opponent's card. I think this card's good. I think the ability to high roll on turn 1 is pretty good. I like the card, honestly. I think this card is not to be laughed at. Zero up next is a 1/3 who on reveal removes the abilities of the next card you play. This card is utterly bonkers. It is insanely good. However, of course, this is a huge downside. It's 3 stats, but the ability can be a huge upside because there's a lot of cards I've seen which have big downsides, and Zero is just going to remove the downside of that. Probably the issue with this card though is, again, it's not going to be often a card you want to play on turn 1. However, if there is a card printed which is a 2-cost card, which we're going to move on to now, which has a downside, suddenly Zero plus that looks a lot better. And then you might also have some big Chungus cards later on in the game that also have big downsides that you can move with Zero. So I think Zero is really, really good, but does have that big downside. Again, it's probably not a card you're going to be wanting to play on turn 1 a lot of the time, which is a really significant downside for these 1-cost cards. You only have 6 turns, so to not play a card one of those turns is not good. Just 1 point in a location is probably going to have quite a big impact because it's going to mean your opponent has to commit some kind of resource to that row. Otherwise, you're just going to win it super cheaply. So I think like the difference between your opponent playing a 1-cost card and you not is going to be really significant in this game. 2 costs up next. Again, looking out to see if there's any of these cards which do have big downsides, because that's going to be insane with 0. We have Angela, which I think is an amazing card. Again, 2 energy now, 1 stat. When you play a card here, she's going to gain +2 power. So if you play 3 cards in the same location as her, putting yourself up to 4 cards, which is the max in the location, she's going to be 7 stats. So that is significantly more than double the energy. However, that would also mean that you've played 4 of your cards into the same location, so you would then want to probably move those cards elsewhere or something like that to actually disperse all those stats. It's an interesting card. I think like the stats speak for themselves. Like, she's just good, right? Like, it's just a good card. We've got Cloak. Cloak is on reveal. It was 2 for 4 stats. So then it has the double the energy plus an upside, which is next turn both players can move cards to this location. So Cloak is going to be having some movement synergy, which fits well with Dagger. Dagger is 1 stat. It's an engine card. When this moves to a location, +2 power for each card your opponent has there. So maybe it's starting off quite slow, but like the later the game goes on, the more stats this card can get. And if you move it multiple times, it could be a big chungus for just 2 energy. We'll have to wait and see how good Dagger is. Cloak is just like a nice mid-rangey card. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. Forge is, again, 2 energy, of course. 1 stat. On reveal, give the next card you play +2 power. Forge is just 3 stats then, which is below the curve. But, of course, this ability can be a big upside with the right synergy. Just as an example, I imagine with Deadpool, the way this one would work is you buff your Deadpool to 3, for example, and then you were to kill it, and then Deadpool is going to double the power it has. I would imagine this carries over, so then it's going to be 6. So that 2 stats is now just turned into 4 points already. And if you do it multiple times, there's multiple stats on your Deadpool. And I'm sure there's other synergies you can use with Forge as well. So even though it's only playing for 3 stats, with the right synergies, it looks pretty good. Medusa is a point slammy card to play in the middle row. If you play this at the middle location, +2 power, she's going to be 4 stats. 4 for 2 without really an upside seems pretty weak. However, there is the upside of if you use a card like Iron Man, which doubles her stats, which is a starter deck card, she's going to be in at 8. And I think 8 is going to be a really nice number for tool cards, because there's Shang-Chi, which is like a tool punish card, which kills 9 strength units or higher. So if you can get to 8, that could prove to be actually pretty important in the developing meta before the game's even out. I'm saying 8 is a nice number. I think it's true though. Shang-Chi just looks like a nice card, which we'll get onto later. Mr. Sinister 2/2. On reveal, add a Sinister clone to this location with the same power. So you've got 4 stats split across 2 bodies. Perhaps there's going to be a way of boosting like multiple of the same card, right? Like there's quite a few cards like Multiple Man, which you're looking at next, of getting a card and multiple copies of it on the board. Perhaps there's more like a way of capitalizing on that, right? Like you play a card which boosts all your Mr. Sinisters. I don't know. Obviously, there's like some Swarm payoffs as well, where you buff all those cards. It seems like okay, it's on curve, and the upside is it's across 2 bodies, right? Multiple Man is 3 stats for 2 energy. When this moves, add a copy to the old location. I think this card seems bonkers nuts. If you can move this a lot of times, it's doubling its value every time, right? If you move it once, you've got 6 stats for 2. But then if you move both those other Multiple Man somehow, you have 12 stats. So, yeah. Card seems kind of insane, not gonna lie. We'll have to wait and see. Mysterio, which I think is one of the best cards in the game. It's 5 stats, so above the power curve, and has an upside. Okay. And the upside is big, because it plays as 3 bodies. You might have seen it from the gameplay trailers. You get one on the left, one in the middle, one on the right. You pick where the real Mysterio is, but your opponent just sees the illusion, so the 0 stats. Your opponent sees the 0 stats on each of them, and then the Mysterio at the end of the game will reveal where it actually is. You're going to know, your opponent's not. That can be the difference between winning or losing at a location. Your opponent's going to have to guess. But it's not just that, because it's 5 power, which is, already an upside, because it's more than double. It's also 3 bodies, and you can buff those other bodies with other synergies and stuff like that. So I think this card's kind of OP. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up getting nerfed, actually. It's my early hot take. Again, I've never played the game, so it is a hot take, but I'm putting this in my decks as soon as I get it, trust me. Aoki is 1 stat, 2 energy. On reveal, give every card in your deck +2 power. If there's cards which thin from your deck, like they just fly out of your deck, card is going to be really, really good for sure, because it's just extra guaranteed value. I think this card, if you play it on turn 2, is nice, but obviously it's just really, really bad if you play it any later than that. So I don't think this card's going to be great. But if you play it turn 2, you're going to be drawing 4 more cards. If you play all 4 of those cards, that's 9 stats. So obviously that's really good. All you need really is like 5 points roughly for this to be worth. And of course, if you're giving 2 stats to specific cards, which also have synergy of that, Deadpool is an example, which is the only one I know at the moment. Yeah, maybe there's some stuff there. I think it's a pretty good card, honestly. Psylocke is 1 stat. On reveal, next turn you gain +1 energy. So this plays for, let's say, I don't know, 4 points below the curve, because you're probably looking at about 5 points for two energy, like the double +1 plus some kind of upside, which would say like 5 is roughly the curve. You're going to need this card to turn into a whole bunch of points, but I'm sure it can, because this 1 energy, again, is worth 2 points. So you can say it's about 3 stats, roughly. But I think it's more than that, because you're giving yourself energy into the next turn. So instead of just playing a 1 cost card, 2 cost card, 3 cost card, 4 cost card, you go 1 cost card, 2 cost card, 4 cost card, 4 cost card. So it's going to allow you to set up decks where you can play 2 4-cost cards back to back, which I'm sure there's some synergies and decks that will want to do that. So I think this card's going to be really good in certain decks. Sentinel is one of the worst cards I've seen. It is 2 cost, 3 stats, and that's it. On reveal, add another Sentinel to your hand. So you get another bad card in your hand. Congratulations. All right. Again, I'm hoping there must be a way of like buffing these all up. Otherwise, this card is just like absolutely terrible. So bad. Star-Lord, which is a starter deck card. It is 2 stats for 2 energy. On reveal, if your opponent played a card here this turn, +3 power. So it's an inconsistent 5 for 2. So it's playing for the curve 33% of the time. You can see why it's in the starter deck. It's just not going to be competitive, but it's honestly not that bad. I say 33% of the time. It's probably more than 33% again, particularly because you're playing this on turn 2. Like if your opponent plays Hawkeye, for example, then they're going to obviously be playing in the same row as Hawkeye, then your Star-Lord comes through. So yeah, maybe the card's not that bad. But there's more of these abilities, and the higher the cost they are, the worse they get, in my opinion. And Star-Lord being a starter deck card means you're going to see a bunch of it. What are the best 2-cost cards? I would say the best 2-cost card is, I'm pretty inclined to say Mysterio is kind of insane. I have a feeling that Psylocke is just going to set up some like really nice combo decks. But I feel like Mysterio is just kind of nuts, honestly. Like I can't really look past that card, so that would be my pick. Alright, cost 3. We have Brood, which is 3 cost, obviously, 2 stats. On reveal, add 2 Broodlings. So you're getting 6 points for this across 3 bodies. That's the upside. Again, 7 points you're kind of looking at to be my rough prediction of what the general cards you're going to be picking are. I think the card's okay. Swarmy type stuff it's going to work in. And also, if there's a location that says cards you play here die, which I think is nowhere, bang, suddenly you can spawn some cards there. So that's kind of cool. Captain America, maybe in the starter deck, I'm not sure. Honestly, he's kind of bad in my opinion. He's 3 stats, and ongoing, your other cards at this location have 1 power. So you are giving 3 other cards 1 stat. So he's playing for 6. A conditional 6 for 3 seems bad. Brood is just playing for that on deploy across 3 bodies. Captain America is a conditional one. Obviously, there might, though, be some synergies of, I know there's a location that, like, doubles your ongoing ability. So, you know, that's something you can do with him. Maybe there's, like, another card which doubles your ongoing abilities, and suddenly the card looks a lot better, right? Cosmo is 3 stats for 3 energy. On reveal, abilities won't happen at this location. So it's an ongoing effect that says, on reveal, abilities won't happen at this location. So, obviously, you've got the potential of, when you first look at this card, of saying, okay, you're going to be denying your opponent on reveal abilities, but then they're just not going to play the on reveal abilities there. You might catch them like the first turn, you might play it and they play an on reveal, and you stop it working if you're going first, if you have initiative. If you want to know how that works, there'll be another video. Basically, you need to be winning the game and you'll go first, and then bang, you play Cosmo, they play it on reveal, and that cucks them. It's not going to happen very often. Really, the value in this card, I think, is going to be for some negative reveal abilities. If you're playing cards which have negative reveal abilities, you play Cosmo in that row, and then you can play those cards into the same location as Cosmo, and suddenly, yeah, those downsides don't exist. And if they have a downside, it's likely that their stats are going to be playing for above curve quite significantly. So that's where you're going to get the value of Cosmo. Doctor Strange is a strange one, I'm not going to lie. It's 2 stats. On reveal, move your highest power cards to this location. I have really no idea how to evaluate this card. It is terrible. At face value, it's going to be definitely relying on synergies. One idea I had is that maybe you use this as a finisher, like another 3-cost card, which comes to mind, which is Rogue. You could play Rogue to like steal your opponent's ongoing ability off Ant-Man or Iron Man, and basically use it for yourself. And then you could also play like Doctor Strange to move your biggest card to that row or something like that, like just to manipulate the rows and bamboozle your opponent, right? Kind of seems like the best way to do it. Maybe there's some movement synergy, but very difficult to evaluate. Ghost Rider, also pretty much impossible because it has discard synergy, which is interesting. On reveal, bring back one of your discarded cards to this location. I have not seen any other discard synergy yet, so I have no idea if this card's going to be good, but my gut feeling is it is. It looks kind of insane. Like, if you can discard like a card with 4 stats, you suddenly got a 7-stat card, and if you can discard a 5-stat card, you suddenly got 8 stats, so, and 2 bodies. So yeah, I think like card just looks pretty nuts. Hulk Buster, 4 stats on this one. On reveal, merge this card with a random friendly card at this location. So with a random friendly, you can't choose, so you're gonna just want to have 1 card and then merge the Hulk Buster with it. This is gonna be good on cards which are trying to go really tall and then make multiple copies of that tall card. It's also gonna be good maybe with like Deadpool. You can like combine Hulk Buster with Deadpool, and then that 4 stats after you kill it is gonna turn to 8 stats, right? Because Deadpool is going to double its power whenever it dies. So yeah, this card seems pretty good in the right deck. Ironheart is 0 stats. Terrible card, don't play this. But she is on reveal, giving 3 other cards 2+ power, so she's playing for 6. And again, you could give something like Deadpool stats, whatever else like wants these stats, right? So probably okay. Juggernaut, 3/3. On reveal, if your opponent played cards here this turn, move them randomly. So Juggernaut is most obviously going to be used in combination with Storm. Storm is on reveal, flooding this location. Next turn is the last turn cards can be played here. So you play Storm, and then you play Juggernaut the following turn, and then move your opponent's cards that they tried to play in the Storm to take that location into a different row. The downside of that is even if you win the Storm row, you've then just put stats from your opponent's location they're not winning into locations they need to win. And also, you're going 3 mana, which doesn't seem optimal. So I don't think the card's particularly good, honestly. I feel like these cards like shuffled the position they were in. Maybe like a new one got revealed as we're live. I don't know. Which one haven't we talked about? We haven't talked about Nakia. Oh, Mr. Fantastic here. Mr. Fantastic is 2 stats. Ongoing adjacent locations have +2 power. This guy's the coolest like animation I've seen so far anyway. You play him in the middle row, and he basically like punches the left and right location to give them 2 power. I think the card's really good at 6 stats, which is on curve, but distributing just like a small amount of points into each row means your opponent's gonna have to commit some resources to get to 2 power, right? And it's also gonna probably help you be winning the game early. And if you're winning the game early, you have the initiative, which means your card is played first. So maybe there's like some decks which benefit from that. I'm not sure. Yeah. Nakia, 1 stat. On reveal, give all cards in your hand +2 power. So you can, after this Nakia card, most likely you're playing 3 cards of 4, 5, 6. But again, you could play maybe 4 or 5 cards if you play a couple of 1 or 2 stat cards. 1 energy cards, rather. So if you play 3 cards, she's 7 stats. Obviously, if you're buffing stuff like Deadpool as well, that's going to be more than that. I think the card's pretty good. The Punisher is one of the worst cards I've seen. It's 2 stats and ongoing +1 power for each opposing card at this location. Kind of similar to Captain America, right? There must be some kind of card which like doubles the ongoing abilities. Otherwise, these cards just seem too bad, or like improves the ongoing abilities. Because you just like Captain America and Punisher like inconsistent stats. I mean, admittedly, the Punisher is even worse than Captain America, but yeah. Maybe it's not. It's kind of bad. I think it's kind of bad. Rogue, I talked about already. I really like this card. I think especially early game when people are playing Captain America, people are playing Iron Man, people are playing Ant-Man, Rogue's popping off, I think. Storm we touched on. Venom is consuming. Destroy your other cards at this location, add power to this card. So you get a big, tall Venom, which could get tall punished and then you lose the game. But then there's ways of then moving this Venom onto other rows, like doubling it with one of the cards we saw at 6 cost. I can't remember the name of the card though, but it basically consumes and then moves, makes a copy in the left row and the right and the middle row, basically the 2 rows that weren't in it. So if that's your strategy, cool, but it's a risky strategy to go for. I think Venom's just going to have a lot of synergy. Deadpool is the one I keep coming back to, right? It's just an idea of like this hidden synergy. Yeah, like you're destroying your Deadpool. Happy days. And you get his points. Like you don't waste the points on him. If you've got a 8-point Deadpool, rather than just destroying him and getting no benefit, suddenly, you know, your Venom is 9 points and your Deadpool is back in your hand where you want it, and doubling the value of it. So yeah, onto the 4-cost cards. We have Drax. Drax is absolutely, that's right, Drax sucks. He's another one of these Guardians of the Galaxies on reveal cards, and they're just getting progressively worse the more they cost, in my opinion. 8 stats conditionally. No. Again, you want to be double the curve plus some kind of upside. Namor is ongoing, plus 5 power if this is your only card here. So if Namor's your only card in the location, he's a 10 for 4, but obviously very restrictive in what you can do. I don't think the card's particularly good. Maybe I'm wrong. Probably quite easily disruptible. Like there's probably ways of moving cards to your opponent's row, like moving cards from one location to another location on your opponent, and then Namor's just going to be a 5 for 4. I mean, maybe it's okay. It's probably all right. I don't think it's amazing though. I think it's just a bit too restrictive, but it's a cool card nonetheless. Rock Slide. I think this card is terrible. Unless there's some rock synergy you can do. 6 stats for 4, which means that, you know, we need like to make up about 3 points here, get up to about 9 to be on the curve we're looking at. And on reveal, it shuffles 2 useless rocks into your opponent's deck. So your opponent, if you play this on turn 4, is going to draw 2 more cards. They're going to have, I'm not sure the exact maths on it, what, like 4 cards left in their deck, I think, roughly. So 2 out of 6, 1/3 of their cards are rocks. So most of the time, they're going to draw a rock, probably. They're going to draw 2 cards. The maths is hard, but like you get my point. They're not going to draw a rock that often. They will not draw 2 rocks very often at all. And it can maybe pop off, but I think you're going to need more rocks. If there's other ways of putting rocks in your opponent's deck, then we are flipping talking, because that is a clog deck right there, and I will definitely play that. If this is the only kind of clogging card, I know there's a clogging location, then the Rock Slide Geezer is lame. But if there's more ways of putting stuff like that in your opponent's deck, and ways of benefiting off of that, then we could be talking. We've got Shang-Chi, who I touched on earlier. I think this is a bit of a meta-defining card. It's 3 stats. On reveal, destroy all, not one, all enemy cards at this location that have 9 or more power. This is a huge point swing card. You could play this last turn as a finisher. Your opponent thinks they've got a location 1, and suddenly you just destroy their big Chungus card plus 3. Like, it's going to be huge swing, right? Like, swing in this game is very, very significant because you're trying to win locations, and so you're going to be surprising your opponents. I think this card is going to be great. Obviously, the big downside is it can play for 3 points, but is it really going to play for 3 points? I think a lot of people are going to be going quite greedy and quite tall, but we'll see. Typhoid Mary, the final one we've had revealed, is 10 stats. She is one of these cards which benefits from Zero's ability to cancel the next one. She has an ongoing ability of your other cards have -1 power. But she is playing for double the energy plus 2. But you definitely want to be comboing her with Zero. Also worth mentioning, Venom can eat Typhoid Mary, and then the ongoing ability disappears because she's no longer on the board. That is the 4-cost cards. What do I think the best 4-cost card are that's been revealed so far? Easily, for me, it is going to be Shang-Chi. Yeah. Geezer card, I think. Geezer card. 5 cost. Alright. Captain Flipping Marvel, mate. She's 6 stats, 5 energy. After the final turn, move to a location that wins you the game if possible. This card looks like more of a fun card than anything. I don't think it's popping off, but maybe I am wrong. Maybe there's some like movement shenanigans you can do with this as well. Because I guess it's moving to a location, right? Like, I don't know, maybe there's like a card that's like, whenever a card moves here, it buffs it. And maybe Captain Marvel is going to like bear that in mind, right? It's kind of cool. But I think it's going to be more of a fun highlight card. But you can be sure I'll be building decks around it and uploading highlight reels on my TikTok. Gamora, another one of these Guardians of the Galaxy cards which just get progressively worse. 10 stats for 5 conditionally. No thanks. Hobgoblin. So the goblins are negative points and they go on your opponent's side of the board, which is pretty significant for a couple of reasons. It can clog their space. Let's say they have 3 cards in a location and you hobgoblin it up. Suddenly they're clogged, mate. Hobgoblin clog is the future, mate. Honestly, Goblin Clog could be a real deck. Wouldn't be that surprised. Like, just imagine putting like a couple of goblins onto your opponent, one of your opponent's locations. Suddenly, you might not even need to play any of your own cards in that location because they could be in the negative. You get me? Like, it's kind of interesting. On reveal, your opponent gains control of this. So, I think it's good. I think it's good. You're playing for, I don't know, maybe like 3 under curve. Again, looking at 10 plus an upside. So let's just say 11 is kind of the best way of doing it. Double +1. I think this card is like kind of good. I think like it's going to be a pain in the butt for a lot of people. I think there's enough upside to be worth 3 points in a lot of games, but it's obviously a risky card, but I think it's a really fun one and I think people are going to enjoy it a lot. Iron Man, started that card, 0 stats, ongoing, your total power is doubled at this location. So you're already going to have quite a lot of cards there. Iron Man is maybe overkill, but I mean, Iron Man's just good, mate. I think it's going to be one of the best starter deck cards that people are going to be keeping in their starter decks for a very long period of time. We have Magneto, 6 energy. Not sure why he's crypt in here. We'll talk about him afterwards. We have Red Skull that I know has had his ability revealed. It's 14 stats. There's a lot of stats. Enemy cards at this location have +2 power. This is another one of those cards which you want to get rid of this ongoing ability, either by playing like Venom and eating it, or something like that, or using the Geezer 0, and this is where 0 is just popping off beyond belief. But in fairness, you would have to play 0 plus this for 6 mana, or more likely what we would do is you turn 4, you play a 3 mana card plus 0, and then play Red Skull at turn 5. That would be the best approach. Taskmaster I think is amazing. 0 stats. But on reveal, you set this card's power equal to the power of the last card you played. So if you just played Red Skull, bang, you're doubling down and you've got 14 stats on Taskmaster. So that's pretty exciting. Again, ideally, you're going to be playing that after like a 4-cost card though. And I'm not sure there's that many good 4-cost cards in terms of big stats, right? Like you're going to want to go 4-cost card and then a 5-cost card and then a 6-cost card. I would imagine is probably the most optimal way of doing it. So maybe it's not all that good. But with Venom, for example, you could probably get a lot of stats with that, right? Like if you play Venom, Venom's power is going to be big and juicy, and then Taskmaster comes through and does the business. So we can look at Magneto. It is a 6 energy. You want us in the wrong bit here. On reveal, there's 12 stats, so it's double. So what's the upside? Move all opposing 3 and 4 cost cards to this location. So all of your opponent's 3 and 4 cost cards are getting moved to Magneto's row. So that means he's not going to play for like the swing that he's playing for in the location isn't that good, but you're just trying to, you know, like that 3 points you're moving from one row might just be the difference between winning or losing that location. So it's a really interesting card. Seems like a pretty high skill ceiling card. Pretty difficult to evaluate, but I like the look of it. Onto the 6 cost cards, we have Arnim Zola, which is the card I keep talking about, which is on reveal, destroy a random friendly card here, add copies of it to the other locations. Basically, you're doubling the stats of any card, but you're putting them from the location they're in into the 2 other locations. Blue Marvel, I think is amazing. We have Blue Marvel, which is ongoing. Your other cards have +1 power. It's basically a Bone Talisman from Grant where you're buffing up all of your cards. So if you're going for a Swarm token type deck, this card is for you. Particularly if there's like the location which doubles this ongoing ability, for example. I think this is an unconfirmed one, okay? Galactus, this site reckons on reveal it's going to destroy all other locations, bruv. 3 stats? Wait, what? What? Does destroy all other locations mean that it's just suddenly a 1 location game? Or does that mean that those locations just don't have their effects anymore? I don't know. I just don't flipping know. Doctor Doom also has an unconfirmed one, which is 5 stats, 6 energy. On reveal, summon a 5-power Doom bot to each other location. That's going to be 15 stats across 3 bodies. Seems kind of OP, guys. If that's true, that seems kind of OP. Hulk, which is a starter deck card below the curve, as you would expect, just 11 stats for 6. And we have the Infernaut as the final one, which I talked about earlier. 20 stats for 6. If you played a card last turn, you can't play this. So, yeah, this is the one where you're going to want this 1 cost thingamajigger called Zero. Play the Zero. Wait, can you play Zero? No, I spoke with my Twitch chat about this. We don't think you can play Zero with it because Zero says remove the abilities of the next card you play. But then if you read the Infernaut, whatever on earth it's called, not familiar with this guy. If you play the Infernaut card, if you played a card last turn, you can't play this. This is not going to work, right? Like, this is not going to work. How would you set that up? It's not happening, right? No, so you would do it for turn 5, you play a 4 and then the 0, but then the point that my Twitch chat brought up is 0 says the next card you play, but then the Infernaut says if you played a card last turn, you can't play this. So this ability isn't relevant because you can't play it because you did play a card last turn. And it's only the next card you play which is abilities get cancelled. Does that make any sense, chat? What do you think? Am I right or am I wrong? That's what my Twitch chat reckons anyway. So yeah, best 6-health card. I don't know. Like, I mean, Doctor Doom seems OP if that's his actual ability. So does Galactus. I don't think this card's that good, honestly, because like you're at turn 5 spending 5 energy for 5 points, which is 5, maybe 6 below curve. And then this is like, I don't know, maybe like 7 above curves. I don't think it's that good, honestly. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe it's pretty good. I think there's like one other card actually in the game because it's, yeah, Death. Death is 12 stats for 9 energy. But she costs 1 less for each card you destroyed this game. So maybe Deadpool is going to take advantage of Death. Maybe you've just got a high control deck where you're just trying to kill lots of your opponent's cards. Then you could maybe play Death. I mean, she's 12 stats. You're going to be hoping to play her for 5 energy for it to be worth it, right? You're not going to want to be playing her for 6 energy. You need to be destroying 4 cards and then playing a turn 5. And then she's pretty good. Alright, I think that's all the cards. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did watch this far, please do subscribe to the channel and that. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to check out my Twitch channel where I do stream. I'm going to be streaming lots of Marvel Snap. I also have a TikTok channel where there's lots of Marvel Snap content going up. I also have a Instagram and a YouTube Shorts, which is just where the TikTok's going up because why not? Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Again, if you watch this far, please leave a comment saying Speci is popping off for Marvel Snap. Basically use the words Marvel Snap because that'll probably help me out on the algorithms on that. Alright, nice one. Is there any cards that you think are really good that I didn't rate? Is there any cards that you would like me to build a deck around? Which card are you most excited to use? Just tell me all you are thinking about the cards in Marvel Snap. Alright, bye!